Welcome to the Developer Experience Summit, hosted by Harness. Excited to have a few sessions today and looking forward to talking to these folks over here. I'll have them introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Hasit. I'm Platform Engineering Director and CISO for Cisco's incubation engine.
Hi everyone, I'm Satish Balasubramanian. I'm a divisional CTO with DevEx Corporation. I take care of the architecture and digital platforms.
Hey, my name is Prem Dayalan. I'm a senior distinguished engineer at Capital One. I'm a part of domain architecture and solution architecture spread across the core and the enterprise technology.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. I really appreciate it. We're here specifically to talk about developer experience, and I think that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And with every different company, there's kind of a different viewpoint. Gentlemen, would you guys like to kind of at least give us your understanding of what that means?
Great, I'll start with that. Great question to level set. For me, any task, any process that touches or is touched by a developer is part of the overall developer experience. It starts from like a completely new person joining the company. They had to be up and running from day one. Whatever you need to make them up and running from day one for them to submit the PR, that's what I keep telling my team. The shortest time to PR is what we measure the developer experience as. So whatever it takes to make them up and running to submit that shortest PR, I think for me is a developer experience. It could be around the setting up of a repo or starting to code, having your all the modules available that someone could go just pick up and then enhance it, or around the entire CI/CD pipeline, setting up of them. How do you ease the testing that an individual does, testing that a QA does? Everywhere, anything that starts all the way from your coding to the deployment to integration, everything for me falls under a developer experience. Like in our company, basically, I think we are a 110-year-old company. So we are trying to transform a lot of the way in which the engineering is being done. So for us, our focus is touching each and every of those elements. We are in varied maturity everywhere. But for me, that's the entire gamut, which is developer experience.
That's amazing. Gentlemen, differing opinions, same opinion?
So main thing when I think about developer experiences, I see multiple personas involved. So first one, you have the developer persona, and there's two buckets there. So first one is the more traditional software engineering developer. So that's one persona that you need to cater for in a particular way. And then the other sub-persona and developer is you have ML engineer or data scientist persona, which is slightly different, but you still really need to cater for them on having a great developer experience, because lots of the new things that are coming today are in the form of ML models and whatnot. And then there's another persona, which is actually all the supporting functions. And why do you actually even consider that as a persona? It's because if you have them working effectively, that means developers don't get hassled with process and other things that they would otherwise get. And you have a much smoother experience, allowing them more time to do what they love and being creative around the development process and taking some of that toil away. And one more point there is, now with all the technology evolving, we are going to have a lot more developers. Actually, if anybody can, today we consider people who are writing code as developers, right? I think tomorrow we've changed that barrier, and which means anybody who can talk, in natural language are also becoming part of that. So that's where the way I see it. Yeah.
I see the boundaries then are kind of shifting. They're not necessarily quarantined to developers even anymore. What's your
Exactly.
opinion?
So I would align with what they say. In addition to it, or in general, developer journey starts from the development. The biggest friction point in today's world is onboarding to various different aspects of it, right? So you have to onboard to testing suites, you have to onboard to CI/CD. Like how seamlessly it can start from your GitHub to the code commit and going through all this different platform engineering tool sets, onboarding and getting into your cloud accounts and deploying seamlessly. That I think is the biggest leverage for the developers. And this is where a lot of companies struggle with today. We went through this journey many years. We were in a great shape, investing on IDP, setting some golden path, investing on IDE aspect of it, curated plugins to it, and see what you fail in the CI/CD before even we can start the work. Meaning from the developer laptop, cloud development environment. There are various aspects I'm looking forward for the industry, but definitely those are all the areas is the key for the developers. And we've seen this in many times in the NPS surveys. So I would emphasize that.
I think it's one of the areas that we often forget, but even as an engineer, if I wanted to switch from one of my teams to another, it was different tool sets, it was different onboarding, it was a ton of different things, and it made it almost impossible. So even though I wanted to help with a different part of the organization, if we didn't have those templates, if we didn't make it easy for people to do the right thing, I know that's basic and I lean on that a lot, but it becomes very challenging and we silo ourselves very quickly. When we think about this boundary for developer experience, and we brought up platform engineering a little bit, I think what's interesting is we've seen, somewhat how we saw people go to the cloud, repatriate from the cloud, and move back to the cloud. I think we're seeing similar things. We saw, DevOps, where we split it up, and we had centralized DevOps, and then we had dispersed DevOps, and now we're coming back to platform engineering. What's your guys' take on what we see now in platform engineering and how that's kind of taken over the world a little bit?
So in particular, it's worth revisiting the history quickly. Back in the day, you had development and operations, threw things over the wall, right? Then DevOps became very fashionable. You empowered a lot of engineers. Then it was a bit chaotic when it came to actual production. And then SRE from Google was very popular. How do you reliably run it? Obviously worked very well for Google. Quite difficult when it comes to implementing it effectively outside. Then now today we have platform engineering in order to kind of put a sensible bottleneck in place, right? Because what's happened with all the cloud native technology is a lot of diversity, 15 different ways of doing a single thing, and not necessarily up to the quality. And then it's very difficult when you want a consistent experience and when these things compound. So platform engineering is, by definition, it's a bottleneck. Now, the thing with bottlenecks is they can be a good thing as well as a bad thing. And they're very effective. And it's all about how effectively we use it, right? So there's a good book called The Goal. In that, they talk about bottlenecks in a very much in a plant processing environment. Now, in the platform engineering sense, platform engineering bottleneck can be used to accelerate as well as slow things down. And it allows us to put process and method into a sensible place. Now, where it's going to run into challenges is, if you think about why DevOps became popular, that's a friction point between developers and how rest of the things are working.
I think the way I look at it is, I think there's anti-types of DevOps, where we talk about multiple types from a combined team, a completely segregated team, a mix and match of teams and all those. I think organizations tries everything. But where we are right now, at least in my personal opinion, I think we need to democratize DevOps as much as possible, which means is you still need some kind of a platform engineering team who define the guardrails, who define some kind of rules, governance around what to use, how to use, like templates is a very good example. You define templates. That way you define a standard way in which we want organization to do a particular thing, be it CI/CD or even in IDP, create your own catalogs. So you define certain standard workflows. Then we would want to federate it. That way every development team takes it and uses it. I think there is a huge bottleneck when we have a development team separated from a DevOps team, because even though we keep saying it's no more the old way of operations being separated out, we almost tend to go in the same way. So development completes, it waits for someone like a DevOps engineer to pick up, write an IAC, create all the needed modules to move it from one environment to another, deploy and everything. So there is a complete halt that happens to the overall process, which I think is a complete anti-pattern for when we started with DevOps. So I think we need to have a democratized DevOps a central platform engineering team guarding what needs to be done, what are the best practices, and then every development team is able to take advantage of it and run freely by themselves.
One of the things that I see with platform engineering, and I think this is why we're seeing success in it, is that, when we look at operations, I wouldn't say all operations team felt that the developers were the customer, and they weren't developer focused. Thus, now we've got this, emphasis on developer experience. I think now with platform engineering, that is the customer. The engineering experience is part of what they have to deliver. And so I think it's the same, want and desire to make sure it's secure, make sure it's audited, make sure that what we get to production is quality, but I think we're doing it with a different lens, and we're now focusing on the engineers, on the developers, which is different than I think we were in the past.
I think I would agree, Nick. See, it's an enabler. The principle of platform engineering, enabler of, give the tool set which is required for the developers. That is the principle I believe is a key. As we evolve from DevOps and DevSecOps, as we move on to platform engineering, it's more about how you enable the developers, how you give the tools, and put an emphasis on the developer's journey into the whole end-to-end ecosystem. Not only just delivering the software, how do you continue to monitor, how do you observe how do you observe your applications? How do you make an actions on those observations? And goes beyond to it, like in severity handling, and that's the whole set of platform engineering. Makes it's an evolution in my opinion, and it's definitely brings in a lot of good faith to the developers.
And a good analogy comes into my mind. I have a 5-year-old. If you say no to a 5-year-old, what's going to happen is they're going to find amazing creative things to work around it, right? So that's exactly the same situation with developers. If you say a forced no without rationalizing and giving, understanding what they're trying to accomplish, what's going to happen is they're going to surprise you in a very creative way. So in order for platform engineering to be sustainable and to work, you really need to, listen to them and give them an experience to solve their problems.
I think we still have to say no, but I think that no needs to be in a way that developer understands on what it is. So to Prem's point, the guardrails that you put around, I think those are the key. You cannot just let them run loose as well. So you need to have some kind of a mechanism in which you guard them, but give them the freedom.
I actually don't use the word no because people have emotions attached to this. So it's always yes, but. This is
Nick, the point is, when you say guarded, instead I would say guided.
Guided?
Yeah. Guided templates, golden templates, those are all, to your point, absolutely. How can you be more an objective way than pushing out? You need to put in some guidance, like any society, right? Look at, to your analogy, even in human, it's a nature of human. You need to have some type of guidance and guardrails. So that's what I think platform engineering emphasizes.
I think complex things are okay to be complex as long as people know why. And I think half of the time we have great intentions, but we don't let people know why. If we had an error that says, hey, you can't skip this step because we'll incur a $50 million fine, every one of your engineers would be like, oh, of course I'm not going to skip that step. But if they don't know why, and it's just in their way, I think to your point, by human nature, we're going to want to go around it. What I think I see from teams that are doing platform engineering well, and this is going to be a little hippie, I think they're actually trying to get to a point where they're trying to achieve harmony amongst the teams. It's no longer security with a beating stick. It's no longer finance trying to come and say, hey, you got to fix this, a month later. It's actually about bringing the information to the people at the right time, allowing people to use their expertise, allow security to write those policies or those guardrails, allow infrastructure teams to define where can I deploy things, right? The operations, the DevOps teams, the platform teams define how is this going to get to production? And then as an engineer, I should never see the platform. Right? What I should happen is if it fails, then and only then should I see everything that I need to actually solve the problem. I don't know what your guys' viewpoint is on that. Maybe it's a little too hippie going for harmony.
Yeah, I mean, I have one thing to add. So my title is interesting. So I have Platform Engineering Director and CISO, and the reason for that combination is, especially at the incubator, you want to move fast and enable things, and also at the same time really look at how we do things securely and without frictionless security. How do you accomplish that? So that's why that combination has been put forward. Because what has traditionally happened is a CISO's role was, you're being paid to say no to a lot of things. And obviously, the best security is an unconnected server or a service that is not online, right? So the thing is, actually platform engineering can really enable things. It's like, make it easy to do the right thing, right?
See, going back to your harmony thing, the way I tell my team is, we have to be the mirror for the team rather than being a gate. Because you do not want to stop people, but you would still want to show them where they are going wrong, where they are going away from a particular path. So that's what we try to do. Because the moment you put a gate to hazard points, I think they all try to find a way to go around it. They all try to skip it. But I think as long as you are able to be a mirror, show them, to your point, why they fail or what happens when they fail. So keep being that mirror, be a continuous mirror that you show what they have to do, where they are going away from what has to be done. I think actually works wonders. And we are able to see that in the way the teams are coming up forward, taking the tools, how are they using the tools, and all of those.
And as you mentioned, purpose built. So as long as you can explain the purpose, I think developers are smart, and it's not that they want to do it, they have no path to do it, or there is no clarity to it, right? So the purpose built is absolutely the way you said, mirror versus a gate. Absolutely, I agree with that. We've seen this many times, and definitely explaining a purpose and why we do this, what we do this, is definitely helps from a cultural standpoint. That was our biggest challenge in any company you look at it. Cultural shift is the biggest problem. That happens only when you explain the purpose.
Usually I talk about it as guardrails versus gates, but I love the idea and the concept of a mirror, because really that puts the onus on me to go fix it. Yep. I'm giving you a way to reflect on what's going on. And to be fair, I do think, look, our engineers are the smartest people we hire at our company. If they weren't, we wouldn't hire them, right? And they can only make decisions based on the information we give them. Yep. And I think, to your point, being that mirror, reflecting that back, giving them all the things they need, I always kind of reference it back to the whole shift left conversation. I think we did that wrong. I think we shifted the workload left to the engineers, when in actuality, what we needed is to shift the information.
I think so.
I think we talked a lot about making it easy to do the right thing. But for a lot of folks, especially in regulated environments, it's actually even more important to make it hard to do the wrong thing. I know those are both basic and easy statements. If it was easy to do the right thing, honestly, the clouds wouldn't exist, because we would have made our VMs at home, right? But making it hard to do the wrong thing, again, it's not about slowing people down. It's actually about making it faster, because everyone knows how to play the game the same way. What's your thoughts with platform engineering, regulated industry, and kind of making it hard to do the wrong thing?
So, see, I'm coming from a regulated industry, right? So there is it's a stability versus the fast, meaning the quicker delivery, and right, it's important. But being a part of a regulated example, you can take a bank or insurance or government, versus you have more flexibility in terms of the open source versus retail. You have a little more flexibility. What that means is you need to have a little more paved path, where guided path, which we talked about earlier, is important. It's not about restricting our developers, to your point. It's about what they can do, what they cannot do. Give them a clear examples of the boundaries, and that could be through our IDP. Start with an onboarding process, seamlessly integrating into various enterprise integrations, and when they commit the code, what are the steps they can take, all the testing measures they can take. So giving that perspective and setting that goals, or setting the thresholds, is important. If we take an example of CodeGen today, right? AI CodeGen, or you can look at observability metrics and monitoring. all the spaces you can leverage AI, but then code gen, we shift, like previously it was like 80-20, like I spend 80% of my time build the code and then debug and make that solid. Now we generate the code in 20% of the time, and then 80% you now try to understand the code, try to debug, and try to make sure understanding itself is harder. So there is a risk in what we put into our environment, right, as an applications. So that's a part I think regulated delivery is important. What we deliver and how the gates are, how you set up the gates.
I see it as almost like playing a video game. And I know we've actually had this conversation, but the first time you play Mario, you jump on the flower, you die. The second time you jump over the flower. And what's interesting is that I think having delivery be that same way, we've put those guardrails in place, not the gates, but the guardrails to make sure that you don't have that net new CVE. You don't, you meet your resiliency requirements. You meet all the different aspects of testing or security that's required. And again, it's okay to fail, right? Because every time we're learning and we're continuing forward, what we're seeing with customers who are adopting that and leveraging platform engineering, creating these templates, putting the policies in place, you would assume that it goes slower, but in fact, it's quite the opposite. Instead of having to wait for a change advisory board, instead of having to wait for outage windows, now since the policy makes sure everything's met, we're seeing people deliver rapidly, 7 minutes in time for 36,000 developers at some of our customers.
Basically fail fast.
Fail fast.
Absolutely. That's the big leverage for the developers. As long as you are giving the clear clarity of where you're failing and why you're failing, that is a huge emphasis for the regulated delivery.
See, I might be combining everything as governance, because the way we look at governance is you have process, policies, and people. In a highly regulated environment, you still need a cab in many cases, because at least to do a check mark to an auditor, you still need to show it went through a cab. But to your point, how are we failing fast? How are we putting those guardrails and policies in place? I think the policy starts from as simple as, do we even have a PR approver? Because there are many cases where the code goes through even without a PR approval. So policies to ensure that there is an approver. Who is the approver? Who is doing it? The policies to ensure the IDP that you spoke about, defining a standard workflow where we are not doing anything different from what we want to do. So it's all guarded. You handhold people to go in a particular path, and it's all there in the tool. So using the tooling, defining the policies, and having a standard process that people follow, I think helps us to ensure that we are ticking all the boxes from a regulated environment standpoint. And I think there are toolings that are available, which is helping us to do this, helping us to accelerate this. It's more of how an organization picks it up and how they are able to implement it in their own space, within their own needs.
So this, I have seen it done well and done badly, both sides, right? The important thing to think about regulated environments is you have a lot of rules in black and white that you need to follow, right? They're not always black and white, so it's really important to very logically look at, what's been trying to accomplish and have the necessary conversations, because this is important, because if you misunderstood them and the intentions of the policies, and if you implement something completely wrong, what's going to end up is, people would not want to touch it afterwards once it's built, right? So it's like, yes, you got the day one setup done, but it's not sustainable to keep on, right? I mean, this is a problem in regulated environments if you're not careful. So real answer is actually understanding and then making sure you have a very sustainable approach to iterate and continuously improve the regulated environment, because, and then this way you're getting, up-to-date security patches, a better developer experience by making sure the tooling and things, follow.
We can't have this conversation today without talking about AI. I think we do a disservice to everyone who's listening. But I think it's important that we talk about where AI is beneficial and where it's not. One of the things that I've kind of leaned on for the last little bit was making sure that if we're going to leverage an AI, it's not removing the best part of someone's job. What I find is that's the easiest way to get to revolt. If you go take the best part of someone's job, Why are they there? Versus if we spend our time, energy, and effort building artificial intelligence to remove the worst part of someone's job, usually people come clamoring to it. I don't know if you guys have an opinion on that specifically, or where you see AI specifically in the entire SDLC, but I'd love to hear your guys' viewpoints.
For me, AI and automation are the vehicle which is driving efficiency. So there are a lot of inefficient, less productive tasks when we think about a developer, be it from coding, testing, which is a major bottleneck for many people, writing an IAC, ensuring that we have everything right from a CI/CD standpoint. All these are time consuming as well as a lot of error prone areas. So picking back on what you said, I think there are AI companies who are actually doing agentic software engineers, and they are talking about digital twins. So those are far-fetched. I think if we can start really with places which are more error-prone, or which are not that good areas that a software engineer wants to spend his time, a developer wants to spend his time, I think those are the areas where we should see how AI helps. The best example for that is, I know every company probably are trying in code generation, but more than code generation obviously is an easy place for us to hit. But when we go the next phase from a code generation standpoint, testing, writing a unit test scripts, regression test suites, the overall system testing, enabling some kind of a CI/CD pipeline that could be auto-generated based on, we typically know what kind of environments we are dealing with, which is our hyperscaler. So I think if we are able to use AI to generate some of them, it not only takes that mundane task out of a developer or a DevOps engineer, but also I think it accelerates the complete delivery. So it brings in efficiency, it reduces the errors that we typically throw in there, and I think makes everyone so productive. And the developer could actually use that time. We keep talking about even the entire platform engineering is basically to reduce the toil of a developer. I think AI for me is an add-on, it's icing on the cake from a reducing the toil perspective, so that they could actually use the time to do some much more better job that they are supposed to do.
I think the toil is one of the things that, there's a lot of things I'd put off till tomorrow. There's things that I hate doing. And if I could focus my entire day on the things that I love doing, I'd be infinitely more productive, right? Also, I'd be infinitely happier in my job.
Exactly. So fun enough, so we spoke about platform engineering being a bottleneck. Actually, when you think about the personnel doing platform engineering, I have seen a lot of different platform teams and engineers in SRE platform engineering domain who suffer with toil burnout very frequently. And in fact, like for some of them, I have even advised, why are you looking for your fourth SRE or platform engineering job? One burnout after another. You need a serious career change here, right? And given that's the situation, because it's a bottleneck at the end of the day, there'll be those strains. Now, I really do see AI as essentially a tool that could really help this industry in particular to make it more sustainable and have better work-life balance, and also enjoy what they're doing, particularly for platform engineering professionals. And then going beyond that, it's almost like when your employees are not stressed, the customers are going to get better served, right? So that's the way I see it.
I think if you look at how we've taken the industry, and if you look at how it's kind of grown, we started with code gen, and I think that was where we all got our start. But if you look at the DORA report that came out, while we're generating more code, it's not getting to production faster. And I think we talk about those bottlenecks, if we can leverage AI to remove those bottlenecks. If I'm trying to build Ford F-150s, I could put raw materials at the back of that, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get any more Ford F-150s out. Right? We have to actually make the process better. We have to make, again, have the policies, make it easy to do the right thing, hard to do the wrong thing, but allow it to actually go faster. Remove the bottlenecks that we can, or at least enhance them. If we let AI agents take care of the worst part of the job, now it allows us to focus on the best part of the job. And I think that's a very different view than what the industry's been looking at.
So Nick, I fully agree what we say. I'm coming from a governance standpoint. Our human in the loop is important. And every company has a different data sets and different way. For example, right? And a code formatting is different. You take an example of Facebook, Google. It's AI can generate a code for you, but is that aligns with or you fine tune the model and customize it, or you prompt it well to generate that code. That is important. So even in the AI world, even definitely we should use it, and it's definitely a great tool for us. How do you invest in customizing for an enterprise needs, especially on the regulated industry, is very, very important. And it can spin out of control very easy as well. And the human in the loop is important in each stages. And SDLC is important for any company, any of the. It required some level of governance with an acceleration through AI. I would take an example in CodeGen, and there is a huge benefit we can get, as you mentioned, from the metrics and observability and monitoring, and even for the incident management, severity metrics. There are a lot of, because it's all data driven. Our idea is not to mask the data. That's not our goal. How do you leverage the data for predicting the outcomes and get the accuracy of it? I think that's the part I think we would continue to evolve. I think there is several unknown in the industry. Next 5 years, I feel like it's a great journey. I'm looking forward.
There is no denying the fact that we should do it in a responsible way. We should have a human in the middle. But I think we probably spoke about this. Platform engineering as such is an enabler. Now AI on top of it is becoming an additional 2x enabler or an accelerator. I think that's the way we want to look at it. So that's why I think an agentic software engineer probably is few years down. It's going to come for sure, but I think at least for now to begin with, where can we really use AI to improve the day of life of a software engineer or a developer? Meaning, where can we really ensure that the toil that he or she goes through can be actually removed? I think that's where we should start using AI. I think you covered a lot of good areas, starting from development to monitoring to observability, everything. I think if we can use AI to kind of accelerate whatever they are doing, improve the productivity, and ensure that they are able to spend time on what makes them happy, rather than probably people doing something which they don't like, I think that should be our goal.
I'm actually excited because this was a great conversation, and what we found is that, again, we went back to where can AI be used to remove the toil, even those toil points that are in reviewing and the human in the loop, even removing those aspects. And I think as we constantly look at it from the developer experience lens, this is where we actually then gain success. Yes. And so it brings us really back to where we were. I kind of have one more, and I think it's important because a lot of people, 8 years ago, everyone said we're doing AI, and they were barely doing math, right? They were literally like, oh, we're doing standard deviation. That's not even machine learning, it's just math. And so at Harness, we've been very particular. A lot of it's automation. Some of it's machine learning. We came out to the market 8 years ago bringing AI. It was predictive AI. It was neural networks thinking about things like your best engineers, but coming out with AI, but again, predictive. And now, of course, using generative. I think a lot of companies actually go and they try to stick, everything is a generative AI sized hole if you've got Gen AI, right? Like if you've got a hammer, everything's a nail. And I think people are looking and maybe even overusing Gen AI in their environments. What's your thoughts?
We have particularly been quite successful with the AI play. So we started that journey April, very small, and kind of ramped up towards last year. And then we have a multi-agent system that's where we delegate work as an AI platform engineer. Now the important thing that was fundamental was how I got everybody in platform team to think about it. Because if you don't do a day job, which is to enable the engineers, you can't do any innovation. You would not have any time to do that. And then the next thing is, if you put AI first and ignore good platform engineering foundations, then you're going to build bad systems, right? Because that's what you call bad AI. So you really need to, how do you get this problem solved in a good platform engineering manner? And then you add the AI on top of it. Because really what AI does is it's an interface between how we communicate today to systems, which is where the change is happening. And it's able to, accomplish a lot of interesting, complicated things. But that reasoning is the key piece that, particularly with LLMs, what's been possible, right?
I think the way I see it is, Nick, going back to what you said, right now Gen AI is probably the shiny object. So everyone wants to use Gen AI. AI is not something new, because we have been using AI for 8-10 years right now. I think it's picking the right horse for the right race. There are a lot of things in platform engineering which could be done, or in any use case that we take, which could be done using a proper workflow, proper orchestration, proper tooling. I think AI is an add-on on top of it. Even in AI, it need not be Gen AI in every case. It could be your traditional AI, predictive AI. But I think what Gen AI has really enabled right now, which is why I think people are so behind it, is we always used to talk to a computer using the binaries. Right now, I think we are talking to the computer using a natural language. So you need to know React or Angular to write a UI code. Last week, one of my business person, they just used one of the tool. They just gave some commands, prompts. They came up with a complete UI. I think that's what Gen AI has enabled. I think there is definitely power, but I think we do not want to just throw it in every possible place. I think we have to really see where it enables. Like everything that we are talking in platform engineering, probably proper orchestration, proper policy guarding could help us. But Gen AI obviously is going to help us in agentic. Like instead of a person going and stitching every step by step, agents are probably going to run by itself. Or the entire the chat support that we have provided. Those are places where earlier probably I have to wait for one of my SME or one of my super developer to come and answer me a question. Right now I could just go ask a question, it generates and shows what needs to be done. There are so many even IDEs out there which generates the code. It says this is a particular problem, you want me to fix it, it goes and fixes it. So going back to the toil, I think there are many things that probably Gen AI can remove from your day-to-day operation. But yeah, we definitely have to pick it in the right tool or the right use case where I'm going to use Gen AI. And more importantly, I think using it in a responsible way, especially in a regulated environment, many organizations they have. It doesn't make any sense to just go and use Gen AI, which is publicly available. I think you need to be 100% careful in what you are using, what data you are sharing. Is there anywhere going to be some kind of a data leakage? I think those also needs to be taken into account. So Gen AI is powerful, but there are probably all other ways in which you could get a work done. So we should look at really what is the right way of doing it rather than just jumping to Gen AI.
So adding a little bit to it, right? Today, the holy grail of platform engineering is coming to a self-service form, right? Now, what Gen AI could add to this is making that self-service form explainable to anybody who wants to use it. You don't need an expert to tell me what the fields are. And then also even simple things like the discoverability of the form, right? Because there's a lot of effort involved in getting people the request to the right form, and then filling it to make the desired outcome. So that's where Gen AI can really help. And another thing to add is finding information, right? Where there's a lot of SREs and platform engineers spend a lot of time answering questions. Gen AI could intercept those things and then answer. So you get less toil on platform engineers, more time to do improve the tooling, and then faster response. If Gen AI can get a high confidence answer quickly, you get a better experience because of that.
To add to it, I fully agree. Gen AI would be definitely beneficial. The part which, again, in the example, what we are talking about, when we generate something and the governance of it or the understanding of it, that's a huge burden as well for enterprise, especially, right? I feel like you will agree with that. It's a code generation. I don't know Java or I don't know Python. I can still generate the code. I can run it in a day, but can I support it? Can I go and enhance it at some point? Is that really adding the meaningful bit? That is the part which we will spend more time. That's a maturity model I think is required from the industry overall. I think it would evolve, but that's not there yet, in my opinion. That's where I always emphasize the human in the loop is so important, and the knowledge of the human is important for the job to acknowledge and understand and take the risk of it, right? So that's the part I would emphasize.
I think long ago we said automate everything, and that was kind of the requirement in order to get to production. And I think people that haven't done that yet, doesn't matter how much Gen AI you put in the beginning of this, it doesn't actually increase the velocity. And I think as platform engineering changes, as our DevSecOps changes, SRE, as it mutates, when we look at the developer as the customer, when we start putting the right guardrails in place, not the gates, I think this is what gives us that opportunity now to truly automate the areas that we need and leverage AI where it's necessary. So I see it as a great future, and I thank you, gentlemen, for coming and talking today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Great conversation, guys. Thank you.
Great conversation. Sure, yes.
Stick around. We've got tons more sessions with an amazing set of speakers. Really excited to be here today, and thank you guys so much for listening.